Okay, today we're going to add some estimating and adding decimals. Those are the notes that we're going to add today, and those should probably go on page 35. Let me just make sure that I didn't miss anything. Yep, page 35. Okay, so I'll label my page 35, and we'll start with estimating. Estimating decimals. This is still Unit 1, and the date that we'll put in is 11/10. Okay, so estimating decimals. Estimating decimals is just when we use rounding before we do something like add or subtract. So we are rounding to add, subtract, multiply, or divide easier. So if I have 1 and 372 thousandths, and I'm going to add that to 3 and 567 thousandths, and I say, okay, if the directions tell me that I want to round to the nearest tenth, then what I'm going to do is take a look at, so my 3, I go ahead and look over at my 7, and my 7 tells me, does it stay a 3 or does it go up? And since 7 is in that 5 to 9, it needs to go up. I would say 1 and 4 tenths, and then I have 3 and 567 thousandths. I'm going to look over, and the 6 tells me whether this stays a 5 or goes up to a 6, and since this is in the 5 to 9 category, it's also going to go up, so I'm still going to add, but now I have 3 and 6 tenths. And I could look at these same numbers. If it tells me instead that I'm rounding to the hundredths, then I'll look here. So if it asks me to round to the hundredths, then what I would round is I would have 1 and 300. The 2 says the 7 should stay the same, 37 hundredths. And then I would add that to 3 and, well, I keep the 5, so the 6, I'm looking, does the 6 stay a 6 or go to a 7? 7 tells me that it needs to change, so then I have 57 hundredths. So this is rounded to the tenths, and this is rounded to the hundredths. So now I need to actually look at, how do I add these things? So we're going to add, and we're going to do adding decimals. And the most important thing with adding decimals is just making sure everything is lined up. So I'm going to start with my tenths here. So if I have these two numbers and I need to add to the tenths, I'd have 1 and 4 tenths, 3 and 6 tenths. I need to make sure that my decimal points are all lined up under each other. And then I'm adding tenths to tenths, ones to ones. So 4 plus 6, that gives me 10. I carry the 1. 1 plus 1 plus 3 is 5. And this number could be written as 5.0, but that is the same as just having the whole number 5. Now I want to look at the at adding with the hundredths. So if I'm adding all the way up to the hundredths, I would have 1 and 37 hundredths, 3 and 57 hundredths. Again, most important thing, I need to line up my decimal points. So I start at the farthest one. Start with the hundredths. 7 plus 7 is 14. Carry the 1. 1 plus 3 plus 5 is 9. I don't have anything to carry. That decimal point just moves right down when I'm adding and subtracting. And then 1 plus 3 gives me 4. The final one, let's go ahead and add up the whole numbers here. So I had 1 and 372 thousandths, and then 3 and 567 thousandths. Again, my lining up is at the decimal point. That's where I'm deciding where to line up. 2 plus 7 is 9. 7 plus 6 is 13. 1 plus 3 plus 5 gives me 9. And 1 plus 3 gives 4. I move that decimal point straight down. So if I round to the tenths, I get 5, which is close to when I'm adding up, and the actual number over here is 4 and 939 thousandths. That is close to 5. Now I do want to do one where the numbers are of different lengths, just to talk one more time about lining up those the numbers by the decimal points, because that's so important. So let's say if I wanted to add 6 and 8 tenths and 2 and 327 thousandths. So now I have numbers that are different lengths, but I need to line them up at the decimal point. That is how I'm going to know that I'm adding these correctly. So if I start with 6 and 8 tenths, I'm then going to make sure that I have my decimal point lined up, 2 and 327 thousandths. So when I'm adding up, I'm always making sure that I'm lining up my decimal points. Now after the decimal point, I can fill these in with zeros, because that's what they're worth. They're worth nothing, so a 0 is fine. 0 plus 7 is 7. 0 plus 2 is 2. 8 plus 3 is 11. Carry the 1. 1 plus 6 plus 2 is 9. Bring down that decimal point. Okay, and that's adding with decimals. It's very similar to adding whole numbers. The biggest thing is remember to line up at the decimal point.